What's up, everybody? Ian O'Neill here to take you through some of the action that's going to be taking place this coming weekend in the world of mixed martial arts. Two big cards on this weekend that we'll touch on over the course of the next 30 minutes. And when I say wheel, I don't mean wheel. I mean I will. I'm here on my own. I'm flying solo today. It's the first time I did something like this on my own. So, unfortunately, Paul had some more technical difficulties. The old technical gremlins are still causing him issues, but he's hoping to be back next week. So I said I'd just jump on here so we could get something down and prepare you guys for some of the action that, like I said, that is coming up this weekend. So not really used to doing these on my own. I just noticed before I turned on, I actually have my AirPods in when I don't really need them because there's not going to be anybody talking back at me. You're going to have to listen to me waffling on for the next 30 minutes or so. Two big cards this weekend are the UFC Fight Night card in the Apex and the big Oktagon 62 card taking place in Germany, in Frankfurt, in the 60,000 arena. Pretty exciting to see that too. I'll probably tune in. Obviously, Will Fleury's fighting on that card. But before we talk about that, I'd like to talk about the UFC's installment this weekend, which is taking place in the UFC Apex on Saturday night. What I like to call these cards is the come down cards after the pay-per-view. Obviously we saw what happened in Salt Lake City. Alex Pereira put on a very enthralling performance, an exciting performance against Khalil Roundtree Jr., picking up the win in the fourth round. And, we go from the bright lights of Salt Lake City to the bright lights of the UFC Apex, and we're just not going to have the same feels, I think, for a pay-per-view card. So that's why I call it the come down card. But we have a pretty damn good main event that we can look forward to on the Apex card, and that's in the flyweight division. That's Brandon Royval, who takes on Tatsuro Taira. Taira coming in here at 16-0, undefeated, for the toughest test of his career, without a doubt, against Brandon Royval, who, lost a unanimous decision only a couple of fights ago to Alexandre Pantoja by unanimous decision. I think this one is a peculiar fight, peculiar matchmaking. I understand what they're trying to do here with Tatsuro Taira, obviously an undefeated in his UFC and in his mixed martial arts career in general. I feel, they're trying to thrust him up into title contention. They need some fresh blood up there at the top of the division. Brandon Royval, like I said, had lost to Alexander Pantoja at the end of 2023. Picked up a fantastic win. I thought, look, at when Royval came out after that loss to Pantoja and took on Brandon Moreno, I believe he came in at short notice there, just I think 2 months after him losing to Pantoja. I thought it was a horrible mistake, if I'm being honest. But he came in there, fought like a champ, took home the split decision, and got the win over Brandon Moreno. And I thought it was very, very impressive that he did that. There's two traits in that fight that I think will pay dividends to him in this fight against Taira. And that was how strong he finishes. How unorthodox he is also, something that's a tricky puzzle to figure out if you're coming in to fight him. And I think that's what Tatsuro Taira is going to have to do this weekend. I mean, we've seen Taira's rise through the UFC. I remember with Taira, when he came into the UFC, he was like 10-0. I remember doing the preview show, and I remember kind of covering his first fight, where I was excited to see, lots of kind of questions were surrounding him as a fighter. Obviously fought on the Japanese regional scene, and there was very little video footage on him really coming in. But I remember seeing him making his UFC debut at UFC Fight Night, where he came in and he took on and beat who was it again? Yeah, Carlos Candelero by unanimous decision. That was in May 2022, so he's been around quite a while, and he's went on a wicked winning streak. Took out CJ Vergara via armbar in the second round. Jesus Aguilar, another triangle armbar finish for him in the first round there. Took on Edgar Chariez and won by unanimous decision. It was a tough test for him. I remember that was a tough fight, but tough fight in terms of he got brought into deep waters. and he, obviously eked out that decision there. Carlos Hernandez, beautiful left hook finish for Tatsuro Taira in that fight. Landed a lovely left hook, finished him off with some ground and pound. Alex Perez was next in line for him, and that was in June of this year. Obviously the fight was playing out as it was playing out. Alex Perez he got injured with a takedown attempt from Tatsuro Taira, which was unfortunate. We didn't truly see how that fight was going to materialize. That was on paper the toughest test in Taira's career. Like I said, coming in here against Royval is going to be, I feel, a tougher test for him. And we're going to find out a lot of questions about Taira. At 16-0, it's justifiable that he's getting the shots like this. Obviously, after getting taken on Alex Perez and, the way that fight played out, the UFC, wanted to trust him into this position. I would feel if he goes out here and gets the win over a guy like Brandon Royval, that he's going to probably be trusted into a title shot. It'll be interesting to see if he can do it. Like I said, you tested the waters against Alex Perez, but you didn't get to bring yourself into deep waters. And I think if you're Brandon Royval here, you're going to be wanting to bring in a guy like Tatsuro Taira into deep waters in this fight. Taira very well rounded. Uses his length, his distance control as an excellent jab on the feet, but also is very good in the grappling department as well. Strong takedowns, very strong top control. But that seems to be something that Brandon Royval, for me, has been able to kind of adapt to in fights. I mean, you're going in there against the likes of Alejandro Pantoja and Brandon Moreno, two of the best scramblers in the division, if not in the UFC. So he was able to kind of do very well in the scrambling exchanges against Pantoja in the later stages of the fight. I remember watching that fight live at UFC 296 in Vegas December last year, and I was very impressed with how strong he finished, and was causing Alejandro Pantoja a lot of problems late in that fight. And obviously we seen the problems that he caused Brandon Moreno in that fight too. Look, it was a close fight. It was a split decision. A lot of people did think Moreno did enough, but I wasn't too up in arms about that decision. So, the overall crux of this fight to me is, can Brandon Royval kind of put Tatsuro Taira on the back foot, make him second guess some of his striking, create some scrambling exchanges. With Taira, I mean, he's been to a decision in the UFC over 3 rounds, but we've not seen him fight in championship rounds yet, in rounds 4 and rounds 5. So that's something that's really intriguing to me in this fight this weekend. I mean, I think it's going to be a fascinating contest. I think it's going to be um, a very technical one. I'm curious to see, how Brandon Royval's experience facing high level competition is going to kind of come in, and is it going to do him favors in this fight? Because Taira simply doesn't have that, and that's not his fault. He's building up, and tricky one for Royval. I mean, you go out there, you lose a unanimous decision for a title fight. You put yourself back in there, you get a win against Brandon Moreno, puts yourself right back into the title mix. Obviously, the UFC is thinking here too soon for him to go straight back into another title shot. So let's put him up here against a young, hungry guy in Taira, an undefeated guy. I have to give Royval credit for taking this fight. I mean, it's a fight where he could lose all the momentum in the division, and Taira can come in, and if he gets a win, basically overtake Royval and maybe trust himself into a title shot as well. So obviously, I wouldn't say it's a win-win for Taira, but I'd say that there wouldn't be as much pressure on Taira to go in here and feel that he has to defend his position. I think that's what Royval is doing here. And I feel with Taira, he's coming in here with everything to gain and nothing really to lose. I mean, you go out there and you lose a fight to Brandon Royval, there's nothing too much to be ashamed about there, to be honest. So, super fight that. Really can't wait for that as well. Rest of the card, couple of interesting fights on it, but nothing too outrageously good on it. The co-main event is a fight that will take place in the 185-pound division. In the middleweight division, we have Brad Tavares, who's going in there. He's going to take on, as my internet is super slow, Jun Young Park in the middleweight division. Obviously, Park is is well known for being in exciting fights as well in with Brad Tavares. He lost his last fight to Andre Muniz by split decision. Came out a couple of fights before that, obviously won a split decision over Eric Anders. 3 finishes in a row via rear naked choke. I think that this is a winnable fight for Brad Tavares overall. Jung Young Park, I think he can pose problems, but I think Tavares is a type of guy who wins fights like this. Obviously he went up there against Gregory Rodriguez in his last fight and lost via knockout in the 3rd round. I think Jung Young Park, has some similarities in the type of style that he uses in comparison to Gregory Rodriguez, except he's just not as good as Gregory Rodriguez, to be honest. So, Brad Tavares fights always, I wouldn't say action packed, but never boring fights, but some of them can, just kind of eke out into decisions. And this is a co-main event really that's has no real kind of jeopardy, no real meaning in the division. I think it's an opportunity for both guys who lost their last fight to kind of come in here, get a win again. Brad Farr is obviously a known name. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. Grant Dawson versus Rafa Garcia is a fight that's also taking place on the main card in the Apex as well. Grant Dawson obviously coming back and rebounding off of his loss to Bobby Green against Joe Selecki. That fight was at UFC 302. Not a great fight, really, to be honest. Look, if you're Grant Dawson, you wanted to come in here, you wanted to get the win. And I think, at the end of the day, that is the most important thing. But I remember watching that fight, and it was absolutely god awful. Basically, Grant Dawson took Joe Selecki down, couldn't get out or escape from his guard, and really just kind of struggled to create anything in top position. But like I said, looking back on it, it's a win. It was back into the win column, and he comes in here and he takes on Rafa Garcia. 16-3 for Rafa Garcia, who's coming off a bit of a win streak. He's only lost in his last 5 is to Drakkar Close. No shame in that. That was by unanimous decision. Winning his last fight against Clay Guida. He had Machete in his last fight, 2 unanimous decisions there. So, I mean, I'm looking at this one and it has another unanimous decision written all over it. I would fancy Grant Dawson for this to kind of to bounce back, but I'm interested to see how he performs. Is he going to take risks? Is he going to want to try and make this fight exciting? Because you're not going to get the opportunities that he got his opportunity to kind of trust himself into the top 10. I'm using the word trust a lot on this podcast. I'm very aware of it, but it seems to be the word of this podcast. But Grant Dawson, I mean, he got his chance to kind of put himself into the top 10 in the rankings. Lost. You go out and you don't fight an exciting fight. You get kind of matched up like this. This is what the UFC kind of will do with you. So look at an intriguing fight there in the 155-pound division. But, I think Grant Dawson should get the job done there. In the welterweight division, we do have a fight between Chidian Chukwani and Jared Gooden. Obviously, Chidian Chukwani came out and made his welterweight debut, having fought a lot of his time in the middleweight division. He beat Reese McKee in his last fight. So I was a split decision. Obviously, Reese had some good moments in that fight, but overall, I think Chidi did do enough to take that decision. Obviously, an excellent striker, very technical striker, use of knees and elbows, good clinch work as well. And did well against Reese McKee. Like, it's not easy to go in and perform like he did against a guy like Reese. And on another day, if Reese had a kind of performed to the best of his ability, I feel, Reese might have got the win. But I think he has a much better matchup here in certain ways against Jared Gooden if he can keep this fight on the feet. Gooden coming in off a good rear naked choke win in round 2 over Wellington Turman in his last fight, which was last year. Had a cancelled bout with Kevin Juice, comes in here against Chidian Chukwani. And I'm looking at this one, and if I'm Jared Gooden, I'm not looking to play around too much on the feet here. You want to close the distance. You want to try and put Chidi on his back. A lot of talk was with Chidi, would he be able to make weight? Would that take so much out of him? He didn't look too bad now against Reese. Didn't look like he was gassing too hard towards the end of the fight. But, it was a fight that Chidi was able to fight at his pace and on his terms. So, if you're Jared Gooden here, you've got to try and close the distance. You've got to create grappling exchanges. You've got to try and tire out Chidi and Jaquani, and bring him into the later rounds and see if he can kind of withstand and maintain that gas tank. I said about cutting weight, and I mentioned it about Kayla Harrison, who just fought this past weekend. And, getting down to weight is one thing, and Kayla Harrison did that and looked great against Holly Holm. Didn't look so good the second time around last weekend when she went in there to talk about Ketlin Vieira, spoke about some health difficulties, spoke about all the problems that she had before the fight, having to be hospitalized and everything like that. So, I mean, getting down to weight is one thing, but maintaining your level of performance at that weight is also another thing. So I think that's going to be the big question over Chidi and Jaquani this weekend. Josh Fremd, I always think of, when I'm reading out Josh Fremd, I always think of Jay from the In-Betweeners. Oh, friend. So, he's taking on Abdul Razak Al Hassan in the middleweight division as well. Talking about middleweights getting tired. Abdul Razak Al Hassan is well known for starting like a juggernaut in round one and really puncturing in rounds 2 and rounds 3. Friends coming in here, off the back of 2 losses. A loss to Roman Kopylov, lost to Andre Petroski in his last fight by unanimous decision. Both primarily strikers, and I think you can say the same too about Abdul Razak Al Hassan. Likes to stand, likes to bang, hits really hard. Lost via arm triangle to Joe Pyfer in his last legit fight, I guess. The one before that was a no contest to Cody Brundage due to accidental blows to the back of the head early in round 1. So, both guys here looking to kind of rebound from results that didn't really go their way. I say the same thing about this fight as I say about all Abdul Razak Al Hassan. You got to make sure that you're defensively sound early days against Abdul Razak. Jeez, I knew it. I was going well with names, and now I messed this one up. Abdul Razak Al Hassan. He hits hard. He's very dangerous early. You play your cards right. You be defensively sound. Attack the body. Use that teep kick. Try and chip away at his cardio. I think he can be got at in rounds 2 or rounds 3 in that fight as well. Sneaky good card or sneaky good fight to open up the main card here on the UFC Apex card, and that's Daniel Rodriguez versus Alex Morono. Rodriguez obviously, coming back off of 3 losses here. Neil Magny defeated him via Darce choke. Obviously, we know that he lost to Ian Machado Gary. We were watching that one closely via head kick. Came back and lost a unanimous decision to Kelvin Gastelum. Fought well in that fight, but just wasn't good enough. And in comes Alex Morono for his next challenge. So, I think this is a winnable fight for D-Rod. Morono, similar enough to Abdul Razak Al Hassan, does fade out of fights, but that's because he kind of comes in and take fights at short notice. I know his last fight against Nico Price was at short notice on that UFC 302 card as well. So that was understandable in that fight where Alex Morono lost the unanimous decision to Price. So he's getting a full camp behind him here. So I'd expect him to be able to kind of maintain and make this fight exciting. I expect this to be a straight up banger. Two of these guys like to stand and strike on the feet mainly. And, I'm kind of leaning towards Daniel Rodriguez. I think he's going to have the size and strength advantage if this fight does find its way into the clinch. I can't see D-Rod, being able to kind of, find himself in any trouble in the clinch against Morono. I think he has a better jab. I think he has a longer jab. And I think, that's going to be very important for D-Rod in this fight as well. And, I think it's a smart fight to open up the main card here. And I'm very, very curious to see what happens in that. I mean, both guys coming off of a loss, which seems to be a common trend in this card. A lot of people looking to try get back into the win column. In the 170-pound division as well, we do have a guy that we just spoke about, and that's Nico Price, who is taking on Tembo Gorimbo, The Rock's best friend. We know what Nico Price brings to the table. Always in exciting fights, whether he wants to knock somebody out or whether he puts himself in the line of fire to knock somebody out. Sometimes that can be to his detriment where he gets knocked out himself. He'll be happy that he got back into the win column against Alex Morono, having coming off a loss of Robbie Lawler and another loss as well to Pat Sabatini. Another good test for him here against Temba Gorimbo, who, is another exciting fighter too, likes to move forward. He was very disappointed in his last performance. He came out and said he didn't perform to the level of his capabilities when he took home a unanimous decision win over Razmij Brahimaj. Yeah, we're going to go with that. And, Gorimbo is coming in here on a 3-fight win streak. Obviously got the push from The Rock. Good character, very emotional guy. I wouldn't question his heart, given everything that he's been through. And his heart is going to be tested in this fight against Nico Price. I mean, I think, Nico will kind of ask some questions, but I think Gorimbo will have the answers here. And, what I like to see is, you go out and you get your unanimous decision win. You get that win under your belt. You're still unhappy. You build, you grow. And I would argue that this would be, obviously Nico Price is, a little bit long in the tooth and coming into the latter stages of his career. But it's a good test and probably the stiffest test of Timbo Gorimbo's career because, Nico Price is very experienced and can cause some problems early days. Anything else on this card that's worth talking about? Yes. I'll run through it really quickly. I won't stop on every fight here, but we do have Clayton Carpenter undefeated coming in against Lucas Rocha at 17-1. That's a 7-0 fighter in Clayton Carpenter taking on a 17-1 fighter in Lucas Rocha. So, yeah, strange matchmaking there, but we have seen that from time to time in the UFC. Ramazan Temirov 17-2 coming in against CJ Vergara. I think Terimov is coming over from Uzbekistan, highly touted prospect, and has won all of his last 8 fights, I believe, 9 fights. So a 9-fight winning streak coming in here from for this guy who's making his UFC debut. So excited to see him now. I mean, yeah, some fresh blood in the UFC, and Temirov is getting a good challenge here with CJ Vergara. I mean, Vergara's been around for a little while now in the flyweight division, and obviously coming off of a loss from Asu Almabayev in his last fight. It'll be interesting to see how that fight plays out. Will the UFC newcomer be able to kind of come in and stake his claim and make a run there too? I always I'm never going to talk ill of the 125-pound division. I love that division. I always love that division. #fly never die. Jonathan Pierce versus Pat Sabatini. Really good fight here. I'm really looking forward to this one as well. Pierce, we saw him against David Onama in his last fight, losing a unanimous decision. No shame to that at all. Anderson Brito also defeated Pierce in his last fight. In the fight before that in 2023. And, 2 losses, nothing to be ashamed about there, coming in against Pat Sabatini, obviously, is going to be a tough test as well. But, Jonathan Pierce hasn't had the easy road there. I mean, you're looking back at he's fought, his last couple of fights are here. Kai Kamaka III won that. One against Omar Morales, one against Christian Rodriguez. I like Rodriguez. He's young, he's a little bit green, but he's still a good fighter. Win against Makwan Amirkhani, win against Darrell Elkins before those losses to Brito and Onama. So, I mean, Pierce is used to being in difficult fights, and this is going to be another difficult fight for him, in my opinion, in Pat Sabatini. But, one that he can certainly win, one that Pat Sabatini can certainly win as well, to be honest. Sabatini coming off of his loss to Diego Lopez, obviously no shame in that, has picked up a win over. Oh no, he hasn't fought since that fight. Those are two grappling fights. So I thought he had fought Nico. I was like, fought Nico Price. I mean, what Nico Price didn't make 145 pounds, but actually that was grappling. So this is Pat Sabatini's first mixed martial arts fight since that loss to Diego Lopez. So excited to see how Pat Sabatini comes in. Former CCFC champion. I've been following him along his career, and a couple of ups and downs. I thought he would have done a little bit better than he has, but maybe this could be the turning fight for him. But another stiff test in Jonathan Pierce there. Jan Argueta is taken on as my page keeps reloading here. Dan Argueta goes in to take on Cody Haddon, who I believe is making his UFC debut. The Aussie comes over from the Contender Series, where he picked up a win on this season's Contender Series over Billy Brand via rear naked choke in the first round. Quick turnaround here for the Aussie fighter. Tough fight here, stepping in for your UFC debut. Corey McKenna is back in action against Julia Polisari. Corey McKenna, obviously, coming off that loss to Jacqueline Amarim in her last fight via armbar. Picked up 2 wins before that. So it's been a mixed bag for Corey McKenna in the UFC so far. So, I'm obviously coming from Cage Warriors, from Wales as well. I've always kept a close eye on her progress in the UFC, so it'll be interesting to see what she does. The Taffa brothers saved the day again. Unfortunately, we did lose Tris Barnett, who was supposed to be taking on Sean Sharaf in the heavyweight division. I think Barnett was had to pull out. I don't know whether it was an injury. What are they saying here? Was it an injury? No, just saying that he withdrew. Nothing really has been disclosed there. But Junior Taffa comes in to take on the 4-0 Sean Sharaf in the heavyweight division. That fight kicks off the card in the UFC. Sharaf making his UFC debut. Obviously, we've seen the Taffa brothers around for quite some time. I do get mixed up between Junior and Justin, obviously enough. But Junior came in and lost his last fight to Johnny Walker's brother, Walter Walker. So he'll be looking for the bounce back there. Taffer brothers not afraid to take short notice fights. You got to give them the respect that they deserve. That's the UFC card in the Apex. Couple of all right fights on it. I mean, not a blowaway card. I mean, I love the main event. I love that main event. I do like a couple of other fights on the card as well, so something to look forward to there. Let's take a quick look at Oktagon. And I mean, I'm not going to go through this card in its entirety. We have the King of Germany belt that's headlining here. A very fun fight between 2 former soccer players, I believe, used to play in the Bundesliga. So Sean was saying on the Q&A this week as well, but coming in with records of 16-6 and 15-8. Middleweight championship is on the line. Patrick Kinsel versus Kareem Enziek. Interesting fight there for the middleweight division. Both guys being coming in on long win streaks, obviously, with Kinsel defending his crown. Looking forward to that one too. I've talked with Sean about this, and I would like to maybe put more of a focus on Oktagon, and just for scheduling purposes and other things. It's hard to kind of do that. I feel, I'm going to look at this one because I think it's a fantastic set. And obviously KSW have done these big stadium shows as well. And I'm interested to see, it's not too often we get to see these kind of shows in big stadiums as well. But part of the main reason that I am looking at this card and I have a big interest in this card is because we have our own Will Fleury fighting on the card in the 205 pound division. He takes on Pavel Langer, which is basically a number 1 contender fight, a title eliminator, if you want to call it. Obviously, Langer's been in there with the likes of Carlos Fermola. I believe that was, a fight for the title, which was, no, maybe it wasn't for the title, actually. Apologies. But it was a fight that was over within 7 seconds. So, He bounced back quite well from that fight, and Langer picked up a win in his last fight, which was at Oktagon 57 against Mark Ducis. That was a lovely knee and ground and pound strikes there as well. Comes in against Will Fleury here. Tough test for Langer. Obviously, we know Will Fleury very well now, and Will obviously moving up from the middleweight division, spent some time in PFL. Had the drug test failure. Looking for the rebound. I'm glad. Look at whatever your opinion is on it. There's no doubt that I feel Will has handled the situation as open and as honestly as we can. And if you can give Will anything, you have to give him some level of respect for doing that. No matter what your opinion is on PEDs and all that, but it's a difficult situation for Will. He was also in a tournament where other people were actively on PEDs and also failed as well. So I think his interview with Sean that he did, uh, that's what I always appreciate about Will, his openness and his honesty around the situation. And if you haven't checked out that interview as well, definitely go and check it out on the Severe MMA YouTube channel. I think, Sean asked all the right questions and Will give all the right answers there. And, this is a fresh start for Will. I think, the progression of his career and the upskilling and the levels that he's been shown in his last couple of fights, I, for one, feel he deserves moments like this. And, like he said, getting the opportunity to come in here and fight on a card of this magnitude in front of a big audience. I mean, that's the stuff that dreams are made of. I mean, you know what I mean? You get to showcase your ability in front of 60,000 fans. Like I said, I think I've talked about this fight and on the old triangle and stuff like that. I think, the only thing that'd make this fight better if it was a title fight, but at least what Will has is that if he gets a win here against Langer, he goes on and he has a chance to fight for the title next, and wants to maybe bring a show back to Ireland and everything like that. But look, Will's striking has showed massive improvements, and even in his last fight, he had that was against Daniel Skivor. Great performance, and hurt himself in that fight as well. I think he came out of it with a little bit of a hand injury, has broke his hand, but still managed to get the win via an arm triangle choke in the second round. Looked very impressive doing that. No questioning Will's heart, no questioning Will's desire, and no questioning Will's skill set here. I think, he definitely has all the capabilities to move forward into a fight like this, get an impressive win, cut a big ass promo on the mic after the fight, and set up that title fight, whether it be against Carlos Vermola or whoever has the title. That'll be interesting to see. But I expect the finish here from Will Fleury, and um, that's not being biased. It's just looking at two of these guys' skill set. I think Will is better in all areas. I think he hits harder. Obviously at 205, obviously with the big boys, you got to be careful. I think any shot at any moment in a fight can, cause some trouble to any fighter when we're talking about 205 and heavyweight as well. But very excited to see Will in action here. And yeah, hopefully a win can set him up for a shot at another world championship. Obviously, coming after winning one world title at middleweight, this would be his second one in a different weight class. So, I mean, yeah, definitely tune in and watch that fight on the undercard here, which I have a little bit. I don't know, maybe the card will be reshuffled, but as I'm looking at it here, it's a prelim fight, and I ask myself, this is number one contender fight for in the light heavyweight division. Why isn't this on the main card? But the main card is stacked with a couple of title fights and a couple of other interesting fights as well. The strawweight division, Mallory Martin takes on Katerina Dalista for the 115-pound title. Obviously, Mallory Martin, I think, has had some UFC experience in the past. I know she's coming in to try and take on the champion here and take her throne. Anything else sticking out to me in that card? A couple of interesting fights on it. Obviously, a lot of German fighters on this card. James Hendon coming in against Mohamed Makchev. Very interesting fight in the 145-pound division as well. And I'm looking forward to that card. Look, it's a tremendous setting. think Oktagon are doing some great things. I'd hold my hand up and say, look, I haven't been doing doing as much as I probably should for an organization like Oktagon in terms of coverage and stuff like that. So I go to make the effort and take in this card on Saturday. Really love the fact that it's in a big stadium. The production levels at live shows are next to none. And of course, we have that Irish interest as well with Will Fleury on the card. And very excited to see how he does. And that kind of wraps up for the weekend preview, if you want to call it. Hope you enjoyed what you listened to. If you did, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. You can follow me at IO'NeillMMA on all social media. And we'll be back next week to break down and to preview some more cards. So take care, enjoy the fights this weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.